What's going on, everyone? Juicebags here, and welcome back to some Dungeon Defenders 2 and some Chaos 4 high-scoring runs. Managed to complete all the Chaos 4 maps and get the #1 spot, going with essentially the same thing as I've been doing, and that is shooting for 50% DU with 13 different defenses out there. As you see, starting off here on Temple of the Necrotic, and you know, Chaos 4 is a little different in the aspect of you got the Lady Orcs. So I have been running with the Huntress in the group and using the Explosive Geyser and Poison Dart Tower. I swapped the Huntress out for the Squire for Chaos 4. That way I could get a little bit more in on my walls. Now, still going with the 13 defenses, remember that you have waves them all down, so they don't have to be down up front as long as they are all down before Wave 1 is ended. Now, once Wave 1 ends, of course, then it's a done deal. You have to have them all down, and blowing out all the objectives just to see how many more mobs I can get onto the map. So, of course, more mobs equal more score. More score means more ending score after the modifiers hit. So the more mobs, the merrier, so dumping as many objectives as possible and still trying to get it done. Now, this map was pretty liberal with the DU. I probably could have shot for that 30% mark if I would have thought it out a little bit more. However, 50% seemed like the way to go, and was able to secure that #1 spot. So that was good. Now, I had it pretty easy on this map because Temple of the Necrotic is one of my favorite maps. So although I didn't have to do it too many times before I was able to get that #1 score, I was ready to put a bunch of attempts in, as I just absolutely love this map. Now, of course, as you're going through an entire Chaos tier, trying to get your name up on the leaderboards, it gets a little rough at the end with the rerolls, because you're looking for one particular map or whatever that is left. Temple of the Necrotic would not have been a problem for me, though, if I would have had to have done it a bunch of times, as I just love this one. And the 50% DU with 13 defenses paid off. I still can't stop looking at the legendary gear, even though it's only Chaos 4. And let's take a look. 274,671. Not too bad. I was very happy with that score. And ready to continue on to the next map. Now, next up, we headed on over to the Forest Biome. And the Forest Biome is another really fun map to do, so same thing there. I was prepared, if need be, just to go ahead and grind it out. Now, one important thing to note, of course, one of the fun aspects of the Forest Biome is using the various potions. And if you use the potions, it appears, now it's not proven, but it does appear that you're not getting the kills counted if they die with, say, the fire shield. So if you go over and you get the big red mushroom and get yourself that large fire shield, it seems like you're not getting the score counted on this one. So that's something you'll definitely want to consider. And if you're putting in a high score attempt, of course, you're doing it for a very specific reason, and you have to follow a specific set of rules. Now, this one, once again, with 1250 DU, was kind of liberal, and I probably could have ended up pulling it off with the 375. However, if I went 375 and 30%, I would have not have been able to use the 13 defenses I wanted to use, so I would have had to have gone less. And essentially, 10 defenses at 30% DU is going to award the same bonus as 13 defenses at 50% DU. So I took the 13 defense at 50% route, and still running with that. I've been having a lot of fun with it, and it's always fun just to mix it up and see how many defenses you can pack into what area. The Lavamancer is kind of a given here. I wish the Lavamancer had a third defense that was a low DU cost. I'm not using the more expensive DU stuff just because I'm trying to meet in those DU limitations. Now, another important thing to note with defenses, I know the Mystic is kind of a go-to when it comes to high scoring, as so many defenses available, plus with an extra. It also appears that Obelisk Smite kills are not included in your total, so you're going to want to stay away from using the Obelisk as your 13th defense as well. And with the 13 defenses at 50% DU, I was able to get the job done here on Forest Biome. And got myself a nice little Infernal Combustor out of the deal too. Sadly, it was a little lower level. So with 266,624, I wasn't able to scroll through this one, so that was unfortunate. But I did hit the 50% and the 13 different defenses. Now heading on over to Assault on Throneroom. This is another fun one to do, and this one, although it does have 1100, being below 550 or being below 330 can be a bit of a challenge on this map depending on how you build it. So once again, I went with the 13 different defenses at 50% DU. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one important thing to note is now that I went into Chaos 4, I did change up kind of my go-to deck a little, and I brought the Squire in. So you're seeing these Squire walls here. That is 100% because of the Berserkers. We all know those Lady Orcs like to sprint, and sometimes they can get right past your defenses. Once again, you want to get that clock started as quick as possible, so you don't want to spend a lot of time in that initial build phase, as this time in the game is really the easiest for you to let the clock get away from itself, and you can end up losing lots and lots of valuable seconds. So as long as you have all your defenses that you want placed, or at least the 13 different types placed in this situation, by the end of the first wave, then you are all good. And I was able to achieve that. I got the Lava Mancer going last here with a little Fissure and then some Geyser help. And it is a little sketchy, so I mean, depending on the strength of your gear, some of these builds going at 50% DU definitely adds quite the challenge, considering you're wanting to vary it up and use so many different defenses. Now, I did mention earlier the Chaos 4, the defense units available for the maps are pretty varied. So you kind of get into a groove with one style of design, doing these 1100 and 1200 maps, and then you head on over to like Greystone Plaza, and you all of a sudden don't have all of that DU to work with. Now on Assault on Throneroom, the 50% DU with 13 different defenses got the job done again. 272,933. Once again, got the scroll bug, so was unable to scroll through the awards. And hopefully, Trendy can get this resolved quickly. I know there's been a bit of a problem getting this bug duplicated, as it is very intermittent. And even with me, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Now moving on over to the Crumbled Bulwark. This is another one where it's another check on your defense count, as you all of a sudden drop down to 900 defense units available. So to get that 50% defense unit bonus, you have to be below 450, which means you can use up to 440 DU on all your defenses. Of course, you could use up to 499 if that was a thing, but since it's not a thing, I guess that'd be 449, not 499. And since that's not a thing, you have to go with 440 instead of the 499. I usually try to get the bare minimum down just to get the wave started, as with the build time clock, that is the build time from all of the waves combined. It's a little bit misleading. A lot of people looked at it and thought it meant each build phase under 60 seconds. No, it is a total of all build phases you want to keep under 60 seconds. Now, Crumbled Bulwark is a really fun one to do, and even with the lower total defense units available, being able to split it into just 3 lanes, basically. Combine the 4 lanes down to 3, and it makes building it out much, much easier. So the 50% DU with 13 different defenses. As you see, I was able to scroll on this one, which is pretty awesome. And planning schmanning, that's the one that really is the most challenging to hit, and that is completing the build phase under 60 seconds. Now, another thing you're really looking for here when you're doing these maps is your combined combat phase. Of course, being under 600 seconds or 10 minutes can actually be a little deceiving, as it's very easy to spawn camp these maps and get them done in that period. However, you want to give the Maltheists, the mages, anything else, a little bit of room to do their thing where they're not instantly getting wrecked the second they come out. So with Greystone here, I did choose a bit of a turtle build. Still went with the 13 defenses. And this time the 50% DU made it so I had to be under 500, so 490 total. This one is actually really easy to go over if you're not careful. In fact, I actually had to restart the map a couple of times because I looked up and I was at 510 and wasn't thinking. So, you know, of course with a turtle build like this, there are lots and lots of walls required. I could have probably gotten away with not having maybe one of these walls and using another damaging defense instead. Mainly probably that lower lane that opens once the west gate lock is destroyed. Could probably get away without having a wall on that one. However, with the Berserkers, I didn't want to take the risk and was still able to score the #1 spot on Greystone Plaza. This is another really fun map, and this one I was prepared to do a bunch of times, and I ended up doing a bunch of times before I was able to get it right. Like I said, it's real easy to accidentally go over the amount of DU that you want to spend just from doing something that's kind of normal to what your build has looked like. So with Greystone Plaza, I got to score that #1 position as well with 243,116 total score, and was able to scroll through this one as well, which is just awesome. So thank you for watching. Click that like button and please subscribe, and I will be back soon with more DD2. See ya!